Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I'm a minute late, but let us get straight to it. So, Boker Tov, today's daf, sorry, I'm just pulling it up on my computer, is daf Ayin Hey 75 in Masechet Bava Basra, or Bava Batra. And we didn't quite finish the daf yesterday. We got right to the bottom, I believe, not quite the bottom, so towards the bottom of daf Ayin Daled Amabet. Please just tell me if if I'm not coming through that clear. But we are up to Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. On the bottom Ayin Daled Amabet, how many lines up are we? Not really sure. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, it's the how many? 10 lines up from the bottom. So it says the Gemara. Let me just get started. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. So this is a continuation. We'll see why it's connected. It does get us back to the Livyatan in a second. But says Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Yarden, the Jordan, right, which we all know and are familiar with, is Yotzei Ma'arat Pamyas. It comes out of this cave of Pamyas. And what this is exactly, not so clear, probably something in the north. Tainam Hachi, and there's a Braita that says a similar thing. Yarden Yotzei Ma'arat Pamyas. The
It's the
Jordan,
Banyas in the Galil.
the Banyas, as we call
Yeah,
it.
you've been there?
I've been there. Yeah, it's gorgeous. But I think one of the questions we're going to see, I mean, maybe you'll have references. We're going to see today a lot of geography of Israel. Some of it very much matches. Some of it's a little bit enigmatic. And obviously things change over time, right? So that's one of the questions. But so the Yarden comes down here from Arat Pamyas, which is Miriam said is what we call maybe the area of the Banyas, which are beautiful waterfalls, right, and streams. So that's the Jordan. Umhalech biyama shel Sivchi. Now it travels through the Yam of the Sivchi. My translation here says that this is the Hula. I'm not sure how Sivchi means Hula. And biyama shel Tveria. It goes down to Yam shel Tveria, which is of course what we call the Kinneret. Umitgalgel v'yared the Yam Hagadol, and it travels down, the Jordan, and goes to the Yam Hagadol. Exactly how it gets the Yam Hagadol from there, also not entirely clear. Umitgalgel v'yored ad shemigel lepiv shel Leviatan. Now from there, the waters continue and they get to the mouth of Leviatan. Shenemar, as the pasuk says in Iyov, Yiftach ki yagiach Yarden al piv. You're batuach, you're confident because the Yarden comes to its mouth. And this is the story, the end of Iyov, where we're talking all about the Leviatan. We're going to quote many psukim from that parak. Mat gifla Rabba bar Ula. Again, Rabba bar Ula asked, similar to what we said yesterday, you keep conflating between this big fish and this big animal. This seems to be rain in the section of Iyov. It talks about this large animal called this behemot bahare elef, this animal that had 1,000 mountains that were its size. Ella Amar Rava bar Ula imatai behemot bahare elef betuchot. What the pasuk is telling you, you're right. It is referring to these animals, but what it's saying is, when are the animals, these super large animals, happy or satisfied? That is Bisman Shmegiach Yarden B'Piv Shel Leviatan, when Leviatan is satisfied and the water that needs to get to Leviatan is approaching its mouth. So if the water is still going to Leviatan, though it is referring to these large beasts. Again, these are just psukim in Iyov that we're darshaning. Continues the Gemara, and this gets to this very interesting geography. Ki atar of dimem Reb Yochanan, my dichtiv. What does the pasuk mean when it says in Tehillim, Ki hu ayamim yisada, that the world was founded on yamim, on seas, or it was founded on nehorot yichonena, and it was built out on nehorot, on rivers. Elo shiv'a yamim va'arba neharot shmekifin et Eretz Yisrael. This is referring to the 7 yamim, 7 seas, and the 4 rivers that surround Eretz Yisrael, or that are part of the topography of Eretz Yisrael. Ve'elohein shiva yamim. What are the 7 seas? Again, this is fruitful discussion for many archaeologists and historians. But these are Yama Shel Tveria, so that's pretty clear, right? The Yam Shel Tveria, what we call the Kinneret. Yama Shel Sidom, which some understand to mean the Yam HaMelech, right? The waters of Sidom. Yama Shel Chelat. Not exactly sure what that is. Some say Eilat, which makes a little more sense. Yama Shel Chelata. Yama Shel Sivchi. Again, I can't say for sure what these things are, but we've quoted one earlier. The Yam Aspanya, which again, some people, España often always translate as Spain, but most understand, of course, that it's something much closer and that there's something in Jordan or in Syria, named the Yam Shel España, and Yam HaGadol, which again is all often meant to be the Mediterranean. So these are the 7 Yamim, and there are those who've tried very hard to identify these with, the seas that are around Eretz Yisrael. Ve'elain Arba Naharot, and the 4 rivers are Yarden and the Yarmoch, which we still have, the Kermuyan, and the Fega. And I think the Fega is near Damascus, they say. But anyways, these are the 7 rivers, 7 seas, and 4 rivers or streams that run around Eretz Yisrael. Giat Rav Dimi, Rav Yochanan, Rav Dimi came.
That's the pasuk from Tehillim that we read today, Yom Rishon.
Perfect timing. Kiat Rav Dimi, Rav Yonatan, Atid Gavriel Asod Kininga Im Leviatan. In the future, turn the page, Daf Ayin Hey Amud Aleph. Gavriel, the angel, is going to come and make a kininga, which means some kind of hunt, right? Some kind of search and Leviathan hunt. So that's what Rashbam says. Seidat Chayot v'Keshet, Rabbi Romach, right? Like you got the whole thing, the whole riding out with the Leviathan. Shenemar, as it says, again, this is all back in that parak in Iyov, which is the source for much of this. Timshoch Leviathan b'chaka. Can you grab the Leviathan with a hook? Ubechevel tashkiel l'shonon. Can you capture its tongue with a chevel, with the rope? And so basically, he's going to try to attack this Leviathan. Kadosh Baruch Hu Ozro, but Gavriel will fail. And if Hashem didn't help Gavriel, ein yecholo, no one could capture the Leviathan. Shenemar, because the pasuk basically also says, sorry, I'm distracted here. Pasuk also says, ha'oso yagesh charbo, the one who made it, meaning the creator, is the one who can achieve its destruction, its store. Says Rav Dimi, in the name of Rav Yochanan, when the Leviathan is hungry, how does it get food, right? Leviathan needs obviously a big meal. So motzi hevel mipiv, it actually expels some air, some hot air, and boils up the ocean around it and makes a big stew. It boils up all the waters in the depths of the Mitzulat Yam, the depth of the sea. Shenemar, as it says, again in Iyov, Yartiach kasir Mitzulah. It boils up its pot like the depths. Now, if the Leviathan had not had its head put in Gan Eden, I guess initially in creation, as being part of initial creation, it would smell so bad, I guess from all this eating, I don't know, that no one would be able to live in this world. Shenemar, as it says, Yam Yasim Kemerkacha, that Hashem made this, again, this is in Iyov, that the Yam, the sea, was made like a merkacha, which merkacha is like a spice shop, right? What it means is that Hashem took basically the smell of spices of Gan Eden and applied them, or they were still, they helped the Leviathan not stink so badly. Now, when Leviathan is thirsty, what it does is basically makes these furrows, these rows in the Yam, by sucking up water, and replacing that water with, I guess, sand. That behind it shines a row, so that when the Leviathan travels, you see a row behind it of where it went. And it takes 70 years for the Tahom, the depths, to go back to their flat position. 70. Shenemar yachshov Tahom l'seva. The Tahom will go back to its old age, and of course, seva, or old age, refers to Pchuta Mishivim. You have to be at least 7 to be called seva. Amar Rava, Yochanan, Atid. Now, this, of course, is a very famous thing we're about to quote. We are exactly 8 lines from the top, or 9 lines from the top. It says Rabbi Yochanan, Atid HaKadosh Baruch Hu lasod sudal tzadikim mibsaro shel Leviathan. Right, God one day will make a big feast in Atid Lavo from the meat of the Leviathan for tzadikim. Shenemar yichru alav chabarim. And we'll see what these words mean. But yichru, we're going to translate in a second, means make a feast for chavarim, and we translate chavarim as chaverim, as those who are the friends of God. It says the Gemara, Ein kira ela su'uda. The word kira refers to su'uda. Shenemar, as it says, there's a pasuk in Melachim where they made a feast for the Aram. Shenemar vayichrot lahem kira gedola vayichlu v'yishtu. They made a kira gedola. So clearly kira is a big feast, and they ate and they drank. Ve'in chaverim el tamidei chachamim. Shenemar, as it says in Shir HaShirim, hayoshevet beganim chaverim makshimin kolech. The chaverim listen to your voice, hashmieni, right? Because we want to hear it. So you see, that's referring to the tzaddikim, and they are the ones who have this big feast from the Leviathan. Now, That's the sort of, the people get invited, the Talmidei Chachamim. Hashar, the rest of it, the Leviathan had a lot of meat that went along with it. So after they had finished their big Su'udah of the Leviathan, the rest of the animal would go, they would pass it out to people and they would sell it. Right? It went into the streets in Yerushalayim. Shenemar, as it says, Yichtzu ben Kinaanim. They will pass it out among the Kinaanim. Who are Kinaanim? In Canaanim, el tagarim. Canaanim refers in this context to shopkeepers. Shenemar, as it says, there's a couple of psukim that support that. It says, Kinan biyado mozne merma lashok ahev. Right, this is a negative pasuk in Hosea. The Canaan, they're cheating. They have false scales. They are always making trouble. That's referring to business people who sell by weight. There's another pasuk in Yeshayahu which says, Asher socharea sarim. And the sarim do business. Kina'aneh nichbedei aretz. They are kina'aneh, those in the kavod of the land, and kina'aneh in that context is the same as socharia. It's doing business, doing selling merchandise, and that's how you see the Kananim are doing business with the skin, with the meat, not the skin, the meat of Leviathan. The Amar Rabba bar Rabbi Yochanan, once you're done with eating the meat, Atira Kadosh Baruch Hu lasot sukkah tzadikim merosh Leviathan, as we of course read in our Harachaman on Sukkot, right? That Hashem will make a sukkah, a closure, an enclosed space for the tzadikim merosh Leviathan. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, again in Iyov, hatamale besukot oro. He will fill you up with sukkot from the skin of the Leviathan. Zacha. Now, if you're really our merited person, you'll get the sukkah. Sin lo sukkah. You get your own personal cabana. Lo zacha. But if you're not in that level, that madrega, then osin lo tziltzal. Then the second order is that you get a tziltzal. Tziltzal refers to like a just some shade, not a full house, right? Not a sukkah, but shade. Shenemar, as it says, ube tziltzal dagim rosho. And again, that's the same pasuk in Iyov, that your head will be covered with the tziltzal of which we understand is the shade of the dagim. And it's not literally what it means, but that's the drush. Zacha, now again, if a person merits, then osin lo tziltzal. But if they're second level meriting, then they get this tziltzal from the Leviathan. Lo zacha, but if they're not even on that level, then they can get osin lo anak. They can get an anak, which refers to a necklace, right? So they get a little piece of the skin of the Leviathan to be I don't know, it's a good symbol for them, a beautiful thing. We'll see it's shining in a minute. So that's their sort of third level, the bronze prize. Shenemar va'anakim legagurotecha. It says that we will make anakim, again, exactly how it's related to this pasuk is not so clear, but we'll make anakim legagurotecha, which is a pasuk in Iyov, in Mishlei, I mean, right? You make anakim for your throat, like a necklace. Zacha osin lo anak. Now that's if you merit that level. Lo zacha osin lo kamia. The lowest level of zechut is that you get a kamia. You get a little tiny. I don't know how to translate kamia in English, but a little tiny scroll. That people write things on that you wear in your pocket or around your neck. Amulet. Shenemar, as it says, and again, this is the same pasuk in Iyov. The tikshirenu lenarotecha. You'll tie it on the neck of your na'arot. Does a neck, but tie it to your na'arot, to your kids or your young women, and so that means a tiny little small thing. V'ashar, now the leftovers of the skin of the Leviathan, parso HaKadosh Baruch Hu al chomot Yerushalayim. Hashem will spread them on the walls of Yerushalayim as like a covering. V'zivo mafik misof olam ad sofo, and its shine that will radiate from this skin will enlighten, will be bright from one end of the world to the next. Shenemar, as it says, and this is pasuk in Yeshayahu, which we of course read a lot, Halchu goyim la'orech, that the nations will go to your light, referring to Yerushalayim here, and kings will see the brightness of Yerushalayim. V'samti, now as we continue, a different pasuk, we'll see the connection in Yeshayahu, it says, V'samti kadkod shimshotayich. I will make your well, we're going to touch on each of these words, but your we're dashing this as being kidkod. Kidkod usually means like a precious stone. That your walls will be like a kidkod. They will shine like stones. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, pligi trei malachi berakia. In fact, the understanding of this pasuk is subject to a debate in the heavens. So there were malachim arguing about this. Gabriel and Michael. Again, this is Haragadata for a while, right? So Gabriel and Michael were arguing, and some say that was two people. It was two people in Eretz Yisrael, and Maninu Yehuda v'Chizkiya b'nei Rabbi Chia. right? The two of the sons of Rabbi Chia, Yehuda and Chizkiah, either way, either the angels or the sons of Rabbi Chia, Chad Amar Shoham. One said this refers to the stone called a Shoham, and Chad Amar Yashvei. I just have English here. It says an onyx and a jasper. I don't know what either of those things are, but different shining stones, different precious stones.
Onyx is black.
Okay, and a
I
jasper.
don't know about the other one, but I know
Okay.
that onyx is white.
But these are stones that we talk about, of course.
Jasper is green. The Manhattan Jaspers, Manhattan College Jaspers. Come on, guys. The local team.
Okay. Thanks, James, for saving the day. Anyway, so they couldn't agree on what color, the walls would be shining black or they'd be green. Do both. And so we'll have a combination, I guess, of two different colors in the wall. And then the pasuk in Yeshayahu continues, your gates, your sha'arim, will be stones that are ekdach. Now, ekdach usually means, you take like a hammer, like a chisel, stones that are chiseled out, right? So what does that mean? Rabbi Yochanan was once sitting and darshaning this pasuk, and he said, God one day will cause to be brought huge precious stones and diamonds and pearls, and more margaliot for Rosa. Shehem shloshim al shloshim. They're 30 by 30 amot long, so very big stones. You can't wear these in a necklace, okay? Maybe a big diamond. So, 60 feet, 50 feet by 50 feet. And chokek bahem, you will carve out in them a space that's Eser al Esrim, that's 10 by 20, umamidim b'sharei Yerushalayim, and that will be the gates. Right? The gates will be 10 by 20 amot, which is a standard size for a gate, I guess 10 tall, 20 wide, and I guess that way. But they'll be made, instead of being piecemeal, they'll be made out of these humongous precious stones, and that's what it refers to when it says your gates will be stones that are carved out. Now, liglega level to Talmid, there was one Talmid, sometimes we say Oto Talmid is a famous Christian, but obviously for Rabbi Yochanan, it's probably not the case because he was after that time. But one Talmid made fun, said, how can that be possible? Right? We can't even find, and we've never in our lives, the biggest diamond or precious stone we've ever found is like the egg of a tziltza, which a small bird, a dove, it says here. Anyways, it's hard to, that's the most precious thing in the museums in the world is a pearl or a diamond that's the size of an egg. Lo mishkachina. We can't hardly find that. Kuli hai mishkachina. You think there's just these 50-foot long diamonds sitting around somewhere? So he made fun of it. Liyamim, now of course, as happens, one day he went on the boat tour, the magical boat tour too. And if ligas v'nato bayam, sounds like we should all sign up for this tour, right? His boat went out into the sea, and sorry, where am I? And Chaza, of course, on his boat trip, in wherever the boats go, he saw Malachei Sharet. He saw these Malachei Sharet, these angels or these messengers of Hashem, the Yatvi, that they were sitting at their workshop. They were processing, they were carving out stones and pearls. Shem shloshim al shloshim. Exactly, he saw the workshop. And they were cutting out 10 by 20. Amarlu, so he said to them, Hani Laman, where are these going? Amrullah said, well, don't you know? These are what your Rebbe Rabbi Yochanan told you. God's going to one day place them on the gates as the gates of Yerushalayim. So he came home from his trip, and he said to his Rebbe, oh, I'm going to come back to the shir. Derosh Rebbe. Yeah, keep talking, Rabbi. L'chadna eladrosh. Sounds like you're onto something. Kasher amarta, kinra iti. Just like what you said, I saw it. I could give you a good review of your drasha. And Rabbi Yochanan looked at him and was like, "Oh my gosh, Amar lo Reka, you empty one. If you didn't see it, you didn't trust anything I said. You are you have no trust. You are a mocker of the words of the Chachamim. Natan inavbo v'naaseh gal shel atzamot. He did the famous rabbinic decree of looking at him, and he turned into a pile of bones. Anyway, so don't make fun of the Gemara's maybe. Anyways, it's very interesting, right? They talk about how the fact that he sort of doubted him in the beginning is somewhat natural, but the fact that he felt he was validated because he saw it is what he was upset about. But anyways, continues the Gemara, Meitvei, am I up to Meitvei? Yeah, Meitvei. Ask the Gemara, what about how can you explain that Hashem and the angels in some magical way, there's going to be these huge gates of Yerushalayim that are made out of 30 by 30 amot precious jewels and carved out 10 by 10. But it says in the pasuk now in the Tochacha, right? V'olech etchem komimiyot. I will make you go standing straight up. And Rabbi Meir Omer, what does that mean? That the people in the future will be matayim amah. They'll be 200 amot tall. People as whenever the blessed final days come, we're going to grow and grow and grow until we're 200 amot. I think we have some time still till then. Double the height. Adam Harishon, the tradition was Adam Harishon was 100 amot tall, and people one day will be 200 amot. And Rabbi Yehuda said, no, at least there'll be 100 amot. They won't be 200 amot tall, but people in the future will be mea amma, connected heichal v'kotelav, like the heichal, right? The heichal is 100 amot and with its walls tall. Shenemar, as it says in Tilim, asher banenu kinitiim, I will make you, I build you like plants, megudalim benureihem, that are growing up as in their youth. Your daughters will be like these corners that are carved out that look like the heichal. So people in the future will be modeled after the heichal. So I don't understand. So if your person's 100 amot, then having a gate that goes into Yerushalayim that's 10 by 20 is not going to be very helpful. Or you have to step over the gate. You can't go in it. So it says, you're right. But Kikam Rabbi Yochanan, the Kavi de Bezika, no, they have to have these little, exhaust plans where the Zika is the wind, right? So they had to have openings for the wind to get out. That's what they would build with these 10 by 20 openings for the pearls. But of course, the entrance gates would be much, much taller, and so you'd have to have even bigger stones for that. Okay.
That's the Tehillim from Motzei Shabbat.
It's great. We're catching everything. In the future, God will make 7 chupot for protection for every righteous person. Shenemar, as it says in this pasuk in Yeshayahu, and I don't think our Gemara has the whole pasuk. Does our Gemara have the whole pasuk? Yeah. It does. The next one it doesn't. Okay. It says in the pasuk in Yeshayahu, Ubara Hashem makom mechon Har Tzion. God will build on every habited place in Har Tzion. Val mikra'eh anan yomam. Again, we're dashing each of these words. And Anan, Yomam, Ashan, Noga, Eish, Lahava, Laila, Ki al Kavod Chupa. Right? So all these different things refer to different levels of canopies. And Anan, Ashan, Noga, Eish, Lahava, and Kol Kavod Chupa. God will make, chupot, both numerous chupot, but also they will be based on the person's righteousness and their kavod. And so a more honorable person will have more beautiful chupot from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says the Gemara, I don't understand how all these words refer to a chuppah. Ashan, the chuppah lama. What do you mean? Ashan, one of the words was ashan, which means smoke, right? What are you having smoke inside your chuppah? The whole point of your chuppah, of your tent, is to keep out the smoke. Amar Rabbi Chanina, it's true that the people in the tent are not exposed, but it's telling you, anyone who's cheap, whose eyes are narrow, either it could mean financially, but could also mean, in respect. In this world, mitmalot enav ashan olam haba. Their eyes will be constantly filled with smoke from that Talmid Chacham's tent, I guess, in olam haba. The eish v'chuba lama. One of the other words we used was eish. What do you have eish in your tent, right? That's not you don't want fire in your house. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, that teaches you mlamid shkol echad ve'echad nichve michupato shel chavero. It tells you, and this is a bizarre and amazing Gemara, that each person will be burnt even when you're in olam haba, which is what we just called this, even though it sounds like Mota Mashiach, but either way, even though you're in Olam Haba and you have your 7 ohels from God, you will still be burnt because you look at the next person who has more than you, right? Because every tzaddik is different than the next one. And so there's an element of kfiyah, burning, that you'll be nichveh from the chuppah of your friend because you will regret. Not necessarily that you're jealous of them, but you regret your own life, right? Had I done something differently, my chuppah would have been even better. And you could never redo it once you're in Olam Haba. So people will have that regret, and they will say, Oy la lo'oto busha, oy la lo'oto klima. Woe for this embarrassment and this disgrace that we didn't do better, that we didn't have a better chuppah. And interestingly, something very similar is related when it talks about Moshe and Yehoshua. Because it says by Moshe, when Moshe, God said to Moshe, you have to appoint us, or Moshe said to Hashem, right, I want to appoint a successor, and Hashem said Yoshua. It says, V'natata mihodcha alav. Give from your hod, your glory, onto him. But it doesn't say all of your glory. Lo kol hodcha, right? And Zekinim Shaboto Adar Amr, what people would said in that generation was Pnei Moshe K'pnei Chama. Moshe's face shone and had the glory of the sun. Pnei Yoshua was Pnei Levana. Yoshua was incredible, but it was like the moon, and it was not as good as Moshe. And oy lalo to busha, lalo to klima. Even that embarrassment and disgrace that, it's amazing, but it's not as good as Moshe, was considered to be a sad thing. And so same thing will be in Olam Haba, that as good as you have it, you're not going to have it as good as someone else. Amar Rabbi Chama bar Chanina, continues Rabbi Chama bar Chanina. We are now 6 lines from the bottom. Eser chupot asa Kadosh Baruch Hu l'adam rishon began Eden. We just said that in Latid Avo you'll get 7 chupot. In Gan Eden, Hashem made 10 chupot. Shenemers, it says, and this is a pasuk from Yecheskel, and I don't have a Gemara that has the whole pasuk. Does someone have the whole pasuk? But our Gemara only quotes the first part. It says, "Be'Eden Gan Elohim Hayiti," that I was in Eden, or it's really a case here is where Yecheskel is mitnabe about Chiram. Chiram thought he was like a god, and God was said through Yecheskel, "You're not a god. I am a god in Eden." And in Eden, Kol Even Yikara Odem Pitida. There's like a list in the psukim of all these different. Someone has it? You want to read it?
Yeah, I have it. Kol Even Yikra Misacheta Edom Pitada ויחלום תרשיש שוהם וישפה ספיר נופך ורקט וזהב.
Okay, so if you do the count, we'll see in a second, 10 or 11, it's 10 precious stones that existed in Gan Eden, and they each formed, some kind of chuppah that was shining and bright and protected. Marzutra says, no, actually it's achadesrei, it's 11. Remember, because if you had to add the kolel language, it says kol even yikara, the first words actually, every precious stone, so that's not even named, but it's one more. And Rabbi Yochanan points out, as Miriam just read, the last one that she read was zahav, right? Was gold. So it's garuab shebekulam. The least impressive of all of them was zahav, right? Because we said it last. So all the other stones are more precious.
Aren't these the stones of the Urim Betumim?
I don't think they all are, but some of them are. But again, I don't have the pasuk in front of me, but many of them are, yes. But I don't think it's all 10 are the same. We could look in Yecheskel and Perik Chavchet.
You can look in the Chumash.
Well, you have to have the comparison. So look in the Chumash and look in Yecheskel. As the Gemara, as it continues, the Navi Yecheskel talks about this, Hashem through Hashem, before Hashem is talking about how grandiose and foolish this King Hiram, who thinks he's like God. So it says, Melechet chupecha unekavecha bach, that you are the work of chupecha, which literally means a drum, right? A skin that you put over a hollow thing, and nikavecha, which means your holes. What does that mean? God was saying in the Nevuah to Hiram, you are such a lowlife that bechanis takalti, I looked at you, meaning people like you coming in the future, thousands of years from now, and that's why I chose to make people with holes in them, because otherwise, people would start thinking they're like God. So I wanted to make people so that they know that they have waste in them and that they pass it out. And obviously, that's a huge difference between milachim and gods or God and people. Ikadami, some say, Hachikama, this is what Hashem was saying. Bechanis takalti, turn the page, stuff ayin hayam bebet. I looked at you, Hiram, who was going to come and rebel against me and think you're so great. Bekanastin misal damarishon, and that's why I made it that all people die. Again, obviously there's other things in the story, just to be clear, but that's part of why I made it. And that the drum is a symbol for the coffin, because the coffin is empty, right? It's a container that ends up being empty. And so I made that happen because of people like you.
It says, Adam Rishon. You said all people, but the Chumash and the Meforshim talk about 6, 7 people that maybe they didn't die.
But the Chumash doesn't talk about that. The Meforshim talk about that.
Right. Okay. But I mean, it says B'nai Korach lo metu. How you interpret that, whatever. But you said all people, and the Gemara says Adam and Rishon. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just a diuk, a small diuk here in the Gemara.
Okay, fair enough. But I wanted to make sure so that no one becomes like you or becomes, lives long like you. My va'al mikra. Now, what does it mean? We're going back to the earlier psukim. We talked about Yeshayahu, that Hashem, it says Hashem will create. We quoted this pasuk before, over the whole Har Tzion and those who are there. And it says, and Hashem will call al mikra, those who are, we think it means called to the Suda, called to this feast on Har Tzion. Amar Rabba and Rabbi Yochanan, what it's telling you is, look, Yerushalayim Shalom Hazeh, Yerushalayim Shalom Haba. This is a great, Miriam will appreciate this. The Yerushalayim of Olam Hazeh of today is not like Yerushalayim of Olam Haba. Because Yerushalayim Shalom Hazeh, nowadays, there's no guards, right? Anyone who wants to come to Yerushalayim can come. There's no, anyone who says that they're this, they're that, no limit on who wants to go. Shalom Haba, but you should know that in the future, it's going to be a much more selective city. Ein olin ela hamizumanim la. Only those who are invited or mikra'ah, who are called, will be allowed to come to this great feast in Yerushalayim. In the future, tzaddikim will be called by God's name, or maybe they'll be godly. Shenemar, as it says in Yeshayahu as well, those who are called by my name, is how we're darshaning it, are made for my honor. There are three groups of people who are called with the name of God, Elohein Tzadikim, as we just quoted, right? B'shmo, Nikra B'shmi. Mashiach Yerushalayim, which we'll see in a second. Tzadikin Hadamaran. Mashiach Tichtiv, it says by Mashiach in Yirmiyahu, V'zeh Shmo Asher Yikra'o. This is the name you're going to call this Mashiach, as Yirmiyahu is prophesying about. Hashem Tzidkenu. That God in righteousness, God is the tzedek. So that's the name of the Mashiach. We'll have the name of Hashem. And Yerushalayim Dichtiv, it says in Yerushalayim, a pasuk in Yecheskel, when Yerushalayim, he's describing the size of Yecheskel. It says, describe size of Yerushalayim. It says, Saviv Shmona Asar Elef, that around Yerushalayim there are 18,000 plants or trees. B'Shem Ha'ir, and the name of that city is Miyom Hashem Shama. I'm sorry, Miyom, that day will be Hashem Shama, that Hashem is there. And Al Tikrei Shama El Shema, Hashem Shema, Hashem is its name. Amar Rabbi Elazar, in the same vein, in the future, those who praise God with the words Kadosh will praise Tzadikim with the word Kadosh. As it says in the Pasuk, Shenemar, where am I? Vaya Nishar B'Tzion, it says those who remain in Tzion, Notar B'Yushalayim, Kadosh Ye Omerlo. They will say Kadosh to them, and that we understand that refers to the angels. The Malachei Hasharit will say Kadosh about the people who remain in Yerushalayim, who survive in the
Tzion is the same as Yerushalayim here?
Yes. Amar Rabba Rabbi Yochanan. Says Rabbi Rabbi Yochanan, where am I? I don't know, somewhere like 15 lines down from the wide lines, or maybe less, or the narrow lines, I mean. Atira Kadosh Baruch Hu la'agviyat Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is going to be lifted up. You're going to have really big high risers in Yerushalayim. Shalosh parsaot l'mala. It'll be 3 parsaot. It'll be a huge hill, which means you'll increase the space and the glory and the reputation maybe by 3 parsaot. 3 parsaot, remember, parsa is 4 mil, so 5 miles in the air. Shenemar, as it says, V'ra'ama v'yashva tachta. I'll lift it up and you'll live under it. And what it means is that my tachta kit tachta, just like the space below, the current width of Yerushalayim will become the same as the height. And so how do we know the width of Yerushalayim is 3 parsaot? Mimai dahai tachta tlata parsi havi. Amar Rabba, because of course I met a guy one day. Amar liyahu saba. I met a Husaba, often a tradition for Elio or someone else like that. And Lididi Chazi Yerushalayim Kamaita. And that person told me, I saw the original Yerushalayim, whatever that means, before any kind of destruction, Utlata Parsi Havi, and that's how wide it was. It was 3 parsa. And so based on the pasuk in Yeshayahu, it's going to also be 3, in Zechariah, it's going to be 3 parsaot high as well. The Shema Tomar, maybe you'll say, okay, that's really a pain, right? I mean, how are you going to get up there? Yesh tsar la'alot. It's going to be really hard to get to the, people are going to invite you to Yerushalayim. You're going to say, oh my gosh, how am I going to get to it's too hard to get there. Talmud Amar, the pasuk says in Yeshayahu, mi elek ka'av tu'ufena. Who would be that you're going to fly like a cloud, right? The chiyonim al rubateim, and like yonim, doves, go back to their hides, or their, whatever you call it, their nests. So it's going to be going up to Yerushalayim, it's going to be like getting like a cloud or like a bird. Amar Papa Shmamin, you see from your high Eva Tlata Parsi Midlin, you see that a cloud goes that high, 3 parsa. Amar Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa Bikesha Kadosh Baruch Hu Liteti Yerushalayim B'Midah. Says Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa, the first wide line now. Hashem wanted to give a measurement to Yerushalayim. Hashem wanted to tell Zechariah how big Yerushalayim was. Shenemar, as it says, it's a pasuk in the beginning of Zechariah. The Omar Anna ataholech, and I said to Yecharia said, I said to this messenger, where are you going? And he said to me, Lamodet Yerushalayim, I'm going to give a measurement for Yerushalayim, Lerot Kama Rachba v'Kama Arka, to say how wide and how long Yerushalayim is. So that was the goal, to give a size. When that happened, the Malachei Sharit said to God, Ribono Shel Olam, how could you limit Yerushalayim? You've created many big cities in the world, right? Many big capitals. We never said that Mexico City can't get larger, or I mean, there's no limit. It should grow without boundaries. So Yerushalayim, Shishimcha betocha, God's name is in Yerushalayim. Mikdashcha betocha, Beit HaMikdash is there. Tzadikim betocha. Atanotem ba midah. You're going to limit its growth and say Yerushalayim is limited to a certain size. Miyad. So therefore, the pasuk continues in Zechariah. It says the next pasuk actually. Yomer Elav. Hashem said to the messenger, Rutz daber el hanar halaz. Go talk to the young person, which is Zechariah. Lamar, tell Zechariah, forget about it. There's no size to Yerushalayim. Prazot tejev Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim will be open, right? It will be unlimited boundaries. Meirov adam ubehema betocho, from the number of people and animals and cars that will end up being in Yerushalayim. So there will be no limit. Fortunately or unfortunately, this has partly come to truth, right? That Yerushalayim just goes and goes and goes, well beyond any boundaries anyone could have ever imagined. I think it's much more than 3 parsa at this point, right? Anyways, continues the Gemara. One more statement about Yerushalayim. God is going to add on to Yerushalayim Elef Tefef Ginaot, 10 Tefef of gardens. We don't know what Tefef is, what these measurements are. Rashbam says some kind of gematria for some number, but it really not clear words we're about to say, but it's some number or some idea of gardens. Elef Kefel Migdalim, 1,000 Kefel of Migdalim, of towers. Elef Litzoi Biraniot, 1,000 Biraniot are like like walls of stone, like the guardhouses. Elef Ushnei Shilo To Tafrot, Elef and 2 Shilo. Again, we don't know what Shilo are, To Tafrot, which are small little guardhouses. V'chol achad v'achad havi kitzipori b'shalvata. And every one of these things, each one of these buildings around Yerushalayim will be as great as Tzipori was in its shalva, when Tzipori was prosperous and at peace before it was destroyed. And what does that mean? What's that? That was like their greatest city they ever knew. Tanya Amar Reb Yossi, Ani ra'iti Tzipori b'shalvata. I saw Tzipori before it was destroyed, before it was troubled, I would say. There are 180,000 stores. People who sold different kind of hamburgers. I don't know. Tzikei Kedera, literally, sauces and pans. But, there were basically thousands and thousands of stores in Tzipori, and Yerushalayim will be even greater than that. And finally, not quite finally, finally, one more Agadata before we finish this wonderful Retzef. It says, and this is a pasuk we actually quoted last week, it says that Salaot, the sides, this is Yecheskel talking about the building of the Beit HaMikdash, it says that the sides will be Tsela, El Tsela will be one chamber on another chamber. Remember, we talked about this last week when we talked about the measurements. Shalosh u'shloshim pamim, 3 and 30 times. So ask the Gemara, is it 33 or is it what does shalosh u'shloshim mean? My shalosh u'shloshim pamim, what are 3 and 30 times? Amrei Belevi, Amrei Papi, Mishum Rebishua, Desichni. What it means is that there are multiple levels. Again, very metaphysical here. Multiple levels of Yerushalayim, meaning there's Yerushalayim Shalmata, Yerushalayim Shalmal, there's maybe a few in between. If there are 3 Yerushalayim, in Shalosh Yerushalayim Hain, then each one of them has 30 groups, 30 manifestations, I'll say. Each one has 30 levels that it goes up and has either inhabitants or meaning or things like that. But if there are 30 Yerushalayim, Shloshim Yerushalayim, each one has 3 levels that it goes up. So it's not clear to us, but Yerushalayim is multi-leveled, both in number, and each one has many different dimensions of growth within it. So a lot to analyze. But let's get back in the last 5 minutes to our Mishnah. Okay? Itmar. Says the Gemara now at the 2 dots, now around 10 lines on the bottom, first word on the line. Let's say, remember our Mishnah talked about a mocheret asfina. And it was a great segue to talk about all of the incredible hallucinations and visions and things that people see when they go out on a boat trip, which I highly recommend sometimes. But back to reality, right? You buy a sfina. How in the world do you acquire a sfina? It's very hard to imagine someone picking up a boat, right? So, but a boat's movable. So unlike karka, you can't necessarily be kona it with the ways you're kona karka. So how are you kona a sfina? Itmar, sfina. So Rav says, kivan shemashach kol shukana. If you pull the boat even a little bit, let's say it's a 20-foot long boat, and you pull it 5 feet, that's mashicha. You pulled it. You don't have to lift it. You're kona. Shmuel says, no. Lo kana shimshochet kula. You're not kona it until you displace it by its entire size. Meaning if it's a 20-foot boat, you have to pull it 20 feet. If you pull it 10 feet and some of it is still where it started, you haven't moved the whole boat. You only moved part of the boat, and you're not kona the whole thing. So that's what Shmuel says. You got to displace the whole space of the boat. Says the Gemara, that seems to be similar to a machloket Tanaim that we actually have quoted earlier about other kinyanim like Mesira. Ketzad, the Mishnah, the Batra says, it was a Mishnah, but the Batra is what we're quoting now. Ketzad bin Mesira. Remember, one of the ways you could be kona in animals through Mesira, which literally means giving it over. But what does that mean? So it means, let's say the owner of the animal gives you a chazab b'talpa. They give you the telef, the hoof of the animal, or bisara, or the hair of the animal, or bukaf shala, or the saddle, right? Or shlif shala, which are like the saddle bags, the bags on the side of the animal, or beprumbia shabipiyah, or the bit in the mouth, or bizug shabit savara, or the bell that goes around the neck of your cow. In any of these cases, if the owner of the animal gives that to you, that's how I'm explaining it to Machloket Rishonim, then kana, then you are konep, even though you didn't move the animal, you didn't pick it up, but you took possession, you held on to an essential part of the animal with the owner's consent. That's Mesira. Ketzah b'Meshicha, how are you kona something by pulling it? So let's say you don't have to actually touch it. Korei la v'hiba. Let's say you call the animal and it comes to you. So the fact that it came to you is an action of ownership. Oshiki shabamakal. Let's say you hit it with a stick, and it runs. So you caused it to move, right? So if you cause it to move, again, with permission of the original owner, it's not that you're stealing it, that's considered to be a kinyan. Now, says the Baraita, and these are the words that are important to us, kevan shakra yad v'regel kana. Once the animal moves a foot and a leg, meaning 2 limbs, then you're kona. If it just lifts up, the horse lifts up its front leg, you're not kona. But if it moves a leg and a foot behind it, then you're kona. And Rabbi Achi Amrila, Rabbi Acha Omer, Rabbi Achi said, no. The animal has to move its entire height, right? So it sounds like a very similar machloket to Rav and Shmuel. Lema Rav Damar Ketana Kama, that you don't need to actually move the boat a specific amount, you just need to move it a small amount. Shmuel Damar Rabbi Acha, that you have to move the boat, the entire width of the entire length of the boat, and you have to move the animal the entire length of an animal. Says Gemara, not necessarily. Amar lecha Rav would say to you, there's a big difference between boats and animals. Another Amri, I could say, I feel Rabbi Acha, I might even be able to, according to Rabbi Acha, who says that by an animal, you've got to move the animal a lot, by a boat, you don't have to. Because I can look Amri Rabbi Acha, B'balei Chayim. Rabbi Acha was saying about an animal, an animal that lifts a foot and a leg hasn't moved yet, doesn't move the other side, right? So the actual body of the animal is not moved, or not moved significantly. But a sfina, I told us, if the sfina moved 10 feet, right, it just hasn't moved 20 feet. So kivan de nada baporta, nada lakula. Well, sfina, you start moving part of it, and that part it flows, right? So you've actually physically moved it, and you're likely to keep moving. So it could be, says Rav, you don't need to move the boat the whole length of the boat. You just need to move it a little bit because it's going to continue. An animal, nothing requires that animal to continue moving. Shmuel Amar, and Shmuel says, no, I would say the opposite. I say you have to move a whole boat. But I agree with the Tanakama here that you can, by balachayim, by an animal, you just have to lift up not one limb, but 2 limbs, the leg and the front leg and the back leg. Because Ad can look Amar Tanakama balachayim. The kind of Tanakama is talking about an animal. The kivan de mi'akra yad v'regel, an animal, once an animal starts moving, right, it gets off balance. And once it lifts a yad and a regel and moves those forward, idich lemeikar kaimi, it's going to lift the other one. That's, it's natural and it has to happen. Otherwise, the whole thing will be unsettled or, it'll fall over. It won't be balanced. Avosvina, but a boat, look, a boat, you pull the boat. If you stop pulling the boat, it stops moving and it's fine, right? So nothing demands that the boat keep going. You can stop. I mean, it might move on its own, but you could stop the boat and it would be stable. If you pull it and you pull in the entire length of the boat, that's where I say you're kona. If it's less than that, you're not kona, and therefore you can't necessarily prove from Mashicha of a Baal Chai about Mashicha of a boat. And we are going to leave this here. 2 lines, where we 1 line from the 2 lines from the bottom. Sorry, last line from the bottom, right? No, 2 lines from the bottom, and we will see tomorrow another Braita where there seems to be a machloket that will either support or argue with Rav and Shmuel about how you are kona a sfina, whether you have to pull the whole thing or just pull part of it.
So he's holding the Tanakam is Rab Achai here then, right?
No, the Tanakam is unnamed. And
No,
then
we were the
second-
Machlokos, Rabbi Aha, Rabbi Achai.
No, it's not clear which one. Some say it's Rabbi Achi, the Amri la Rabbi Acha. So one of those 2 Tanaim is the second opinion.
Oh, okay. It was the
Tanakam is unnamed in this Braita. Okay, I hope everyone had a real fun time, and you could think more about these boat stories and all these midrashim, and continue tomorrow morning with some more practical halacha. Shavua tov, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shabbat tov.
Thanks, Abba.